Hello.
What is going on? All right, y'all. So before we get started, I just learned, okay, that it is Miss Michelle's birthday not like a minute ago. So I have to sing to you. Like that's just a required thing. So for all of you out there, I'm not Polish, but I know the Polish birthday song. So here we go. Stola, stola, yeah, żyje, stola, stola, yeah, żyje, jest nasz, yeah, żyje, yeah, żyje.
Why, thank you. And in Greek, that would be Efaristo if we're going to be all cultural today.
I love that. Well, I mean, that is not my culture, but I remembered it from kindergarten, and I feel like I'm able to just go in and surprise people.
I love that. Listen, I learned happy birthday from Barney with Guplianos, or I don't remember the song, but the kids used to know it when we watched Barney. Yes, thank you for my birthday wishes. So
Yay. Okay. So, everybody, my name is Carrie Lewis. I am Carrie Lewis. I just show up and am inspired. And hopefully, through my inspiration, I'm able to help other people show up as their unique self and inspire others. So, and you are?
I am Michelle Barone, Moksha Grace Coaching, and today I'm wearing rose-colored glasses because it is my birthday and I want to see everything in rose colors because that's just the way I want to do it, and it's my birthday.
Yes.
I am an emotional liberation coach, and I help those that want to start managing their emotions, responding to situations in their life, and taking back control.
I love that so much.
Yes.
So for anybody out there, I guess I mean we talked about it before, but why not revisit it? Why do you show up every Wednesday at 12 o'clock on this show called Strip Down? What does it mean to you, and what's your hope?
That is a beautiful, beautiful question. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, so I show up because the more people that can hear our messages as we're talking, as we're bringing out energy in each other, as we're uh, giving an example of what a good, wholesome conversation looks like, an honest conversation that, yes, has different opinions sometimes. And it's okay to have those differences. But the more that we can show up in love and break down barriers, break down fears, help people engage and talk with us and ask questions and just be exposed to what two amazing, wonderful people bring and the light that we have to shine. And then they jump off and then they can share that love and that light with others. That's how we're going to change the world. That's why I show up.
I love that.
How about you?
Well, that question came to mind because you said you want to wear rose-colored glasses so you
Right.
see the world through the lens of, just joy, right? Because I attribute rose with joy. Interestingly enough, before Jesus died on the cross, do you know that the pink rose was a symbol for spirituality? Fun fact. But that brought this thought to my mind that you and I show up every week in with the lens that as people heal and as people hear, because we're planting seeds, even if it doesn't necessarily make tons of sense to you at times because we're talking about deep stuff at times, we're planting seeds so that one day you will come to the understanding, as I recently have, even more profoundly than before, that it is in joy, love, and peace that we experience the power of the universe, of God, of whatever it is you believe. And so it is, for me, critical that people understand that
Hmm.
we've got to break out of suffering, because once you do that, you are limitless in power. It can't not be. It's just, it's a knowing that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to also recognize that how we show up, and I had a couple situations in the past couple weeks with this, how we show up and how someone else shows up. If they are showing up from a place of fear or grumpy, bad mood, issues, drama, what have you, we can then take a pause, turn it around on ourselves and say, is any of this coming up for me? Is any of this mine? Am I reflecting it or attracting it? And I don't want to do that. So, how can I go back to my place of love and respond? What
Yeah.
would I need to hear? And this is such a great question that I ask myself all the time. What would I need to hear feeling in this way, whether it's me or the other person? What would I need to hear? How would I want someone to respond to me to help me through this without me even knowing, probably? But how would I want them to show up?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's really critical that our audience understands. And I mean, again, science and spiritual scripture speak to it, both
Hmm.
lenses. Our mind is everything.
Yep.
What we're thinking will result in external circumstances. It is inevitable.
Yep.
So instead of judging the experience, get curious, much like you do, and ask yourself, what is it that I am lacking that is causing me to experience this situation?
Hmm.
Right? And in that, you can learn a lot. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, my experience with Krista over coaching and like her doing work was a major gift to me, because it really allowed me to unpack a lot of limiting beliefs that I still had, and I just was able to like let them go. And in
Yeah.
doing so, the universe was like, "Oh girl, I got you." But I was grateful. Like, I'm always looking at
Hmm.
every experience I have as an opportunity to release it and trust that I don't have to have the answer. I have to trust that I'm being guided with somebody that does. And that to me is the ultimate, um that's surrender at its finest. It's just being like, you know what? I'm not even gonna try to figure this out. I'm gonna trust that it's gonna get figured out, and it does. It
Hmm.
really does.
Yeah. And so I'll put my glasses back on for this. But so obviously, birthdays, right? Another circle around the sun. When we reflect, and as I was doing this morning in my meditation and yesterday, reflecting on where was I a year ago? Where am I now? And going, well, has a lot changed? Well, I don't feel like a lot's changed. And then I tapped into my heart and I could hear what has changed. And it was that I'm more spiritual, that I have more faith, that I've reconnected with God, that, and that in itself is huge and
Huge.
enough, right? More than anything. Uh, was able to help my family out in some, dark times, and some passings of as far as family members. All of that has happened in the last year. uh Changes in their living situations, like with my mom and having to help her with some things. So when you look at all of that and you take a step back and you go, oh, okay, so I was able to do that with my mom. And mom, if you're watching, I'll see you in a little bit and love you. But we didn't kill each other, which was huge because I'm a different person because there's been growth and expansion.
Mm.
But
You know,
go ahead.
nope, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but you can't see that if you're looking for monetary gains or you're looking for goals that have been achieved. It's those kind of things have to come from your heart. Those are achievements of the heart and of spirit, and that's what matters.
And, my wish for you is that one day you get to a place where you never ever reflect ever. And that is the end of duality, but
Yeah.
even more than that. So that's the thing is, and this is where I have um not an aversion, so to speak, but this is where I can see where people will get trapped,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the healing process is we're constantly assessing, well, why am I feeling anxious, and what blah,
Mm-hmm.
and why is it that I'm like, holding on to this, and the thing is for me, I don't
Mm-hmm.
do that anymore. I don't. I
Mm-hmm.
sit and be like, what's coming up for me in this moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good example. Like, sorry, Krista, you're just the most recent learning, so you're getting used. But I got a message from Krista, and my ego, which is always what I've come to understand, our ego is going to kick in first, guys. So give yourself grace. It's going to kick in. But in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, you get the awareness and you can choose differently. So ego kicks in, right? It's like, oh, you have to be afraid. You got to figure all this out. You got to do,
Mm-hmm.
do, do, do. You got to plan and you got to, but spirit, because I've given it so much power for so
Mm-hmm.
long that immediately it was like, girl, this is easy peasy. Don't even stress it. And as soon as I did that, I looked up and my symbol for spirit being with me, a hawk's flying over. And I walked right in to
Mm-hmm.
get a free 90 minutes massage that was gifted to me out of the blue a couple days ago. And I just kept going and learning. And that is where I want people to know that they can get to, that you don't even have to analyze the past. You don't have to think about it. You don't even have to look at where you've come from, because where you are in this moment is going to get you where you want to be. Like it can't. When you analyze, you're bringing the past into this moment. And that is where people get caught up. And that's why I'm not a fan of analyzing.
But I will give the other perspective of not analyzing it, but being grateful for the journey, which is completely different.
That
So
is
it depends on the intention that you have. I wasn't going into it with analyzing, I was going into it to how far have I come and what am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I was introduced to you. I was grateful that I received that book 10, 11 years ago now, Disappearance of the Universe, which led me to Course of Miracles, which led me to having these amazing conversations with you, and back to God, back to my faith. So looking back doesn't have to be bad. It's when you allow the emotions of the past to overwhelm you like a tidal wave, and now you're reliving it. That's not what I was doing. That's not healthy.
no.
What's healthy is going, okay, I was there. Holy crap, look at all the work I've done. This is amazing. I'm celebrating. I'm being grateful, and now I can move forward with all of these new things that I've learned because I've had such growth and expansion. I am not the same person. So that's the difference. And you have to, even though none of it's real, it's all an illusion. That's part of why we named the show what we did. We're healing from that illusion. It's taking inventory of the things that I've healed from
Mhm.
and being grateful for it.
And you will still eventually get to where I am and not do that. Like, I know that sounds, I know what you're saying. And here's the thing, I'm not, For anybody out there, guys, this journey to where I'm at has been a process since I was 14 years old. That's 30 years of work. 30 years. And I mean, I think about the culmination of all these things. And I'm not disputing that where you are is exactly where you're meant to be, but I am also challenging everybody who's watching that
Mhm.
there is a place even greater than that. Because when you exist in this moment,
Mhm.
there is no need. There's absolutely no need to and I understand you can sit in gratitude, but
Mhm.
even then, like I think so good example. I was with my daughter today addressing an issue at school. And I was watching this young woman advocate for the needs of her classmates in such a clear and kind and eloquent way. And, in the past, I would have been like, oh my God, she's come so far and blah. But I didn't do that. I just bore witness with love to this empowered
Mhm.
gift that is the person that God gifted me with to walk alongside to
Mhm.
help me heal. And so again, I mean, this is semantics because everybody who's doing the work is going to be where you're at. They can't not be like you. I mean, you are.
Mhm.
But I would also say that there's a knowing that is so much greater than that. It just is. It just
Mhm.
is. And you can't it's trivial to try to explain it because it's a knowing that can't be put into words.
Right. Well, and I hear what you're saying, and I think that everybody has their own journey, and everyone has their own meaning to what that journey is bringing them to, their own destination. And so for you on this, this time in this lifetime, in this illusion, that might be what you're learning and what's right for you. And for me on this journey, it's for me to learn gratitude and to track my path and see how far I've come. There's no right or wrong. And
Nope.
that's what I love about A Course of Miracles is it's self-study for a reason. And so for you and your journey is maybe completely different. And people may not ever get to where you are, and I may never get to where you are, but you may not be able not may not need to be where I am. And that's the beauty of A Course of Miracles, of doing any kind of spiritual work, is we take from it what we are supposed to be learning from it, and then what resonates with us, and then the rest we leave for whoever is next, and they're going to find their own path. And that's the beauty of it to me.
Well, I mean, I think I'm gonna challenge you one more time
That's
because
okay. This is
we
a
are
day of
all
challenges.
we're all on our own individual journey, but
Hmm.
the destination is unequivocally clear. Like
Well,
we're all
yeah,
headed
because
to
we're
the
all
same
going to
place.
become one and connected,
Well,
but
we
we can't.
already are one, and
Well, yes, we have
that's
to
the thing.
remember that.
Yeah, we are one. Um, and here's my epiphanies this weekend, right? So the second coming, right? In many scriptures, many spiritual texts, they talk about this whatever entity, God, whatever, Jesus coming down and bringing the good to heaven and the bad will be condemned, right? And the reality is, yes, whoever wrote that Facebook user, yes, yes, we move at our own pace, and that is spot on. So we're exactly where we need to be, but
Hmm.
the destination is the same. That's just it is. But anyway, the
Hmm.
whole point is what I've come to realize: the second coming is when we our individual uniqueness that is in within the
Hmm.
collective come home to love.
Hmm.
That's the second coming. And the last judgment that so many people speak of isn't that we're going to be condemned for whatever it is that we've done. It's when we no longer judge ourselves and
Hmm.
others. That's the last judgment. And when you achieve that, then you really truly have experienced enlightenment because
Hmm.
you no longer exist in that space of um needing to be able to communicate or perceive anything. It just is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It just is. So those are the two things I've really truly come to understand. And the reason it's truly important for me to continue to teach, right?
Mhm.
We learn as we teach. We're
Right.
reinforcing what it is our spirit knows by teaching it and then cultivating that within others. And to this Facebook user's point, we're all at different levels, so we need teachers at all different levels. And again, that's why I said I know we're all exactly where we're meant to be.
Mhm.
But if you said to spirit, to the universe, I want to become enlightened in this lifetime, it can't not happen, because again, going back to both spirituality and science, the mind is everything. What we think, we create in this experience. And I'm gonna tell you right now, people, I'm gonna achieve enlightenment in this lifetime, because this whole duality thing, I'm good with. I've moved out of that.
Well, and I think it's important to remember also, as you know, the course teaches you, is that the things that we learn then catapult us through, uh, or takes away lessons that we no longer need, because we've learned something, and now we get to go to not the head of the class, but we get to skip a couple
Yep.
lifetimes. And so I think that also is extremely important to remember. The quickest way for me to get back to love and to get back into my heart is gratitude.
Facts. And
And
gratitude is paramount.
right. And gratitude is looking and noticing what's around you, but remembering that it's all a freaking illusion anyway. It's something that we created. It's not real, but we can still be grateful for the things that we have, or the things that we know, or the things that we experience, even though it's not necessarily real. If you haven't done the course or started down this path, you might think we're crazy. But and the other thing is the whole, with religion and God and the, day of judgment. And I just have to say it because I have to say it. And it's something I've wanted to say for probably years. My God doesn't fucking judge.
You're right. That's the whole point.
My God
What?
loves everybody unconditionally, good, bad, or indifferent, and we're all here playing our part. So why would we judge? Because we're all playing a part that we've all co-created. And so why judge? Why judge ourselves? Why judge each other? When we judge ourselves, we're judging each other anyway. So freaking get rid of judgment. And if you do still believe, and I respect everybody for their beliefs, I do. If you're believing in the Bible and you're believing in the stories and the traditional way of thinking, that's fine. That's your journey and that's okay. But if you're judging other people, to me, my opinion is now you're acting like God, judging, even though I don't think God judges, but in the old book, in the traditional way, if God's judging, if you're judging people, are you saying you're just as good as God?
Well,
Because you shouldn't be judging.
well, two things. One, you and I are just as good as God. We are.
Because
But
we are
because
God.
we are a
Hello.
creation of God.
Yeah.
However, my job is not to tell people where they need to be on their journey. Much like you and I just, shared that we're in different places, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong. It's just my knowing and my experience, and that's your knowing and your experience. What I'm going to tell you is this. We were gifted the greatest gift ever, called free will. So every single person out there has like, you bar none get to hold on to your beliefs, and that's your choice, and I don't judge you for it. What I am going to tell you is this: I know peace. And anybody who sits in judgment and believes that we exist in a universe that is created by a judgmental God unequivocally sits in suffering.
Mhm.
And with that being said, that's all I got to say, because I don't want to sit in suffering. And if that's you choose, you get to.
Yeah.
But to me, that sucks. Who wants to sit in shit?
Well, and who wants to have that kind of responsibility? I
Yeah.
don't. I don't want to be judge and jury.
No.
We were just watching Bruce Almighty over the weekend. Hello. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to do that. I don't want to be responsible like that. No
well, that's
way.
the other thing. I mean, okay, so you and I have talked extensively about essentially like Christianity, but let's talk about Eastern religions, the Bhagavad Gita, the Buddhism, which I've studied extensively too, along with other things. Hello, karma is a real thing, and judgment creates karma. And so I actually love this because, this is something that I continuously remind myself, right? Force will always produce
Mm-hmm.
force, right? A reaction is always going to create an equal reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, with science being in mind, Eastern and Western or whatever spirituality to consider, wouldn't one surmise that if you sit in judgment, right, based on science,
You're
right, or
going
the
to be
universal
judged.
laws, then you're asking to be judged because you can't not
Yes.
experience what you're sending out into the world. And that's why I tell people, there's no hell, because hell is what you create in your mind and experience, because we're
It's
energy
the
and
illusion.
you attract what it is you think.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And we get to decide, that's our free will, what this illusion, this right now, is going to be. What do we want to experience? I don't want to be judged. I don't care if you judge me. That's on you. I don't care about the judgment. I'm not going to judge others. And it is a challenge to give it up. And if you don't believe me, go walking through the grocery store and attempt to walk down the aisles and not look at people's shoes, what they're dressing, what's in their cart. There are all kinds of ways that people judge other people. You want to start giving it up? Practice in a grocery store, practice in the different stores that you may go to. Just start practicing giving it up. And every time you catch yourself doing it, go, what the heck am I doing? What does it matter? I'm not that person. It's not me. I'm me. And stop judging. Just stop.
Well, here's the thing. So this is, again, this is, I'll never forget. I want to say it was this guy John something. He has a sermon that he does out of Stuart, Florida.
Uh-huh.
And he said he gave the best explanation of the ego that I hands down ever heard. It was just beautiful. He said, right, the ego is the thief pretending to be the cop who's trying to catch the thief, right? I know I've shared this before, but why do I highlight that when you say you go down in a grocery store and you catch yourself judging, and then you're like, why are you judging? The fact that you say, why
I'm
are you,
judging myself judging.
is still ego. So
Right.
instead, right? Because now you're judging yourself for judging, and
Right.
that's the mind F, right?
Yes.
So instead, just be like, oh, that's judgment, and let it go.
Right.
Don't go down the path of, well, why do I think that? Now, granted, there have been beliefs that again, this has been a journey for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shared before, there have been beliefs that I had to analyze. For example, being in a room filled with Black men, or being in a room with, being in specific denominations of church, right? I had to question why. So in those moments, it served me. But now I'm just like, oh, that's judgment, let it go. Oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
judgment, let it go. Oh, and that's all you got to do. Because again,
Right.
if we believe that we exist in a universe that's either energy or God
Mhm.
or love or whatever you believe, right? Then you got to believe that that energy, that whatever is powerful enough to heal you without you having to sit here and ruminate and figure it out. You're like, all you do is judgment, let it go. Judgment, let
Well,
it go.
but here's the thing, Carrie, and don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget
Please.
this. We have gotten to a point where let it like just let it go works because we've worked so hard on that
Oh
and we
yeah.
get it, where somebody who's just starting their journey may have to ask the question and say, wait a minute, what am I doing? And may have to turn it on them so that they can learn the experience of turning it on themselves and
Yep.
realizing this is judgment. Why am I judging other people? Then you can move into, well, wait a minute, why am I even judging myself? But you got to start somewhere.
And
And
it's the awareness.
right. And what used to piss me off is when people would say, well, just let it go. Well,
Mm.
don't fucking tell me to just let it go. I need to know what that means. I need to go through that experience and understand it, and then I can teach others on how to do it. Now, yeah, now I can process different emotions like that. But I wasn't able to do that 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Oh, for
That's
sure.
that's growth, that's learning and having the tools and the techniques to do that. So if you're starting out, yes, be aware, be the observer. What does that mean? That means take a step back. Don't beat yourself up over it, but take a look at what the heck are you doing, and then do you want better? That's your free will. Choose better. Choose better.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I had this conversation with a client before we jumped on. If you and here's the thing. I get what you're saying. We are all on different journeys,
Mhm.
but if I can help you, whomever is you, experience less suffering, because again, guys, I just shared with you 30 years. Think about that. That's 30 years
Mhm.
of sometimes excruciatingly painful, icky, sticky, yucky, gross. If I can alleviate that by helping you find peace and joy in this moment, do I think that everybody has to process, even if they're just starting on this journey, the way you just shared? No, I don't. I really
Mhm.
don't. I do believe that you can get to a place where you're just, all you have to do is this. Your compass, your true north is this.
Mhm.
Do you feel peaceful? Are you in joy?
Mhm.
If you can say yes, truly. Now that, you know what I mean? Because you know when you're real,
Mhm.
I mean, I know peace, right? I can be sitting in a shit storm and know peace. If you can say you feel joy, that's all you need to do. And every time you're not in joy, just you have to ask yourself, what is it that I need to bring me back to joy? Oh, evidently I'm giving myself a thumbs up. Because ultimately, when you are in joy, when you are in peace, when you are in love, you are connected to the energy of the world, you're
Mhm.
connected to source, you're connected to whatever it is you believe.
Yeah. And it's a journey to be even to be able to even tap into that, because I
Oh,
don't think everybody knows how to tap into that either. Some
yeah.
people might think joy is going out and partying with their friends and that's joy, but they're actually numbing, and they think that that's peace, but it's not. And it's everybody's on their path and everybody's at a different place, and they have to get there on their own. And not on their own, they can have a guide, but they have to choose to take the steps.
Well, that, I mean, and that's where you and I come into play, because
Right.
it's effort. You just said it, right? If you want to practice, if you really want to see how judgmental you are, walking to a grocery store from a place of curiosity.
Right.
Um, And it takes, vigilant effort to be able to understand and learn yourself to get to peace. But the reality is there's not one person who's not experienced peace at some point in their life. They just, if we all sat in suffering all the time, we wouldn't have made it. There's just no way. You have those moments where you are sitting by a beach and serenely listening to the ocean, and so it's rough, like cultivating whatever it is. And this is where imagination is great, right?
Mhm.
Again,
Mhm.
it's just cultivating the feeling that you want to have, and knowing that that's peaceful and being in
Mhm.
that peace. But guys, this work is not fit for the faint of heart. In fact, my kids are so annoyed with me right now because I'm on this Dave Chappelle kick. I just have an infinite amount of respect for him, because the dude walked away from like $50 million to stick to his principles and trust the importance of freedom of speech and freedom of the liberty to be an artist, which means you
Mhm.
get to say whatever it is that you want to say. Doesn't mean it comes from a place of hate. It just is, it's artistic expression.
Mhm.
And I thought, now mind you, he's incredibly successful, but that man walked through hell to
Mhm.
prove to the world that he was going to stand by his convictions and become like the one of the hands down funniest like comedians I've ever, because he wouldn't take the knee, to so to speak, or bend at the calls for him to apologize for his artistic expression. That's the level of work
Mhm.
that I have gone through in my spiritual awakening. And it's why I respect him so much, because it's the work is hard. It really is. And yet it is so simple when you really
Right.
get to it, meaning come back to joy and peace. If you can sit in joy and peace, you're good.
And isn't it crazy that it's so hard to do something that's so simple?
Well, because man, look at the world. I mean, and this
Well,
is why
but that's the thing. Don't look at the world.
that's my point.
That's the whole thing, is don't look at the world.
Yep.
It was okay, so I'm listening an audible to a book, and it has to do with the course, but it's by a different, obviously it's a different author. And I'm listening, and he's talking, and he's done a ton of work. He, has written all these books about the course, and he's been doing all this work. And yet the topic of politics came up, and you hear him get angry, and the entities that he's channeling in the book are like, are you noticing that there's some forgiveness that needs to happen around that, because you're having this visceral response, and you could feel it as he's even telling the story. And
Yep.
so what was interesting is I took a look curiously at myself and went, huh, because when things come up around about the world and politics, and I'm just like, okay, all right, cool. And then I like go on and do something else. Like I feel like
Zero.
it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with me. Real, it's part of the reality of the world that we're living in right now. But for me, right here in this being, it doesn't impact me. Like, I hear it. It's good to have the information to be aware, but it doesn't affect me emotionally at all.
Yeah.
Now, there's some other things that have come up that I've noticed a response to, that I'm like, okay, now that I need to work on, and I got to work on some forgiveness on that.
Yep.
But on that, no, I'm cool. And so that, when you're starting to do the work, that's also an easy way to start kind of taking inventory of, what do I still need to work on? What am I good with? And you and I have talked about this here on the show a lot. If we're having a response emotionally to something, if we're reacting, if we're crying, if there's something, then there's something there that still needs to be worked on.
Oh, always. And that's why I listen, it's interesting. When I watch interviews or when I don't know, if I'm called to something, I sometimes won't even watch it with the sound on because I can feel people's energy without even listening to it. You know what I mean? And it's I just know, and so I'm like, oh yeah. But again, that comes from me knowing myself, because just like you, I'm not free from ego. I still have ego.
Yeah.
I just happen to immediately like catch it. I'm like, oh shit, yep, okay. um and to your point about, like, let's just talk about politics for a second. Well, no, I think it's important. Here's the thing, right? My daughters kept asking me to take a position on the war over in Israel, right? And the Gaza Strip, and I wouldn't. I refused, and it pissed them off. And I said to them, one, I understand the laws of the universe. So there's no reason to take an emotional position because it's playing out the exact way it does, right? Force is going to
Mm-hmm.
attract opposite force.
Mm-hmm.
However, but more importantly, if I take a position, I can't sit in love. And if
Right.
I sit in love, then I am staying at a higher energetic vibration
Right.
than all of the people who are taking positions, my daughters included, because they're operating from fear. And fear is a
Mm-hmm.
much lower vibration. And so that's why I tell people, like, your true north is peace and joy. If you're sitting in peace and joy, you're operating in love. If you're operating in love, you're in an energetic state of like, you just are, and that
Right.
is me. I'm happy to be there, and that's why I do not sit there. I mean, in my family, my whole family, their latest thing is P Diddy and whatever went on with him, and they keep wanting to talk about it, and I'm like, I
And
have
taking a
no
position,
position.
right? Taking a position is judgment, because
Yes.
you're judging that someone's right or someone's wrong. So stop. So going, and I'll age myself. I don't care. Bob Newhart. Go watch the YouTube video of Bob Newhart with "Stop It," and it's this segment that he did where he's a psychiatrist and the woman comes in and tells him his stories, she tells him the stories, and he's like, so stop it, just stop it. And it is like, it is so good because it's so true, but it's so simple and so challenging at the same time. But it's like, stop it. It
Yep.
doesn't matter. It does not matter. I'm not saying that people dying don't matter. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is law of attraction, law of the universe. What you focus on is going to grow. And if you're focusing on the hate and you're focusing on the judgment, there's going to be more hate and there's going to be more judgment. And next week, we're going to have an amazing show with Mr. Seth Butler, who's going to come in, and we can extend this conversation, I'm sure, about giving that up. But God, just mind your own self and your own energy. Be in love, enjoy, find your peace, and bring that out into the world.
Yeah, and yes. And I want to add one more
Yes.
thing. Guys, it's not love if you sacrifice. I know I put this up there on Sunday. If you feel like you're sacrificing, it's not love. And I'll give you a sorry,
Mhm.
Krista, you're my greatest. She was my lesson this week. So, Krista gave of herself until it didn't feel good anymore. Then it became a sacrifice, and that was out of love. Now she knows herself well enough to advocate for herself. And so she let me know. And that is powerful. Most people don't. They
Right.
just start to feel icky. So it's kind of like, going back to the dish thing. I didn't mind doing the dishes until I minded doing the dishes. And the moment I minded doing dishes, that
Mm-hmm.
I was out of love, because
Right.
now I'm doing feeling like it's, oh, I'm giving on myself. Oh, no, 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 no. If it does
Yeah.
not feel good, it's sacrifice. And that's why I tell people all the time, and I tell anybody who ever works on anything that they touch of my stuff, if you're doing something that does not like make you feel good, tell me, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it, because I do not want that energy touching what I put out into the world, even if
Yeah.
it's just a newsletter, right? And that's why I was just so grateful, because I don't want any negative energy touching anything that
Yeah.
has to relate to what I do in the world, because I do show up as love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's really important.
Yeah. And I think that the difference also is compromise versus accommodation, right? I've
Mhm.
learned that from my mentor in our group projects. If you're accommodating each other, that's going to build up resentment because you're accommodating. And compromise is two people giving for the betterment of whatever the situation is
Yep.
and what you want to achieve. So it's about compromising, not accommodating, not sacrificing. And oh, as moms we sacrifice all the time. Yeah, there's we're choosing to do that. It depends on who's labeling it, and the person that's labeling it as sacrifice, then they need to take a look at that and go, why are you judging it as that if I'm a parent and I'm choosing to do this? You know
But
what I'm
it also
saying?
goes back to feeling good, because the way I parent is very
Well,
different
right.
than that. I mean, my 16-year-old daughter got a tattoo. I could not care less. You want a tattoo at 16? Have at it. Some parents, that wouldn't feel good. There's no right or wrong. It's fine. I choose to empower my daughters to advocate to and speak up
Hmm.
against what they feel does not serve them with teachers. Some parents feel like their kids should just listen. There's no right or wrong. As long as it feels good, that's all that matters. And
Is
that's
right,
where
as
lack
long as
of
it's coming
judgment
from love.
comes in. Because if it feels good for you, it does not have to make sense for anybody else. It just doesn't. And that is so critically important, because again, I was talking to a client earlier who was telling me that they're giving and giving because that's what God put in their heart. They're giving from an empty tank. I'm like, well, that's not love then. And you're not giving the way God wants you to, because you're not actually loving yourself first to really be able to love them. Because sometimes loving them is saying, you need to get your shit together, and
Hmm.
I'm not here to bail you out anymore. That sounds harsh. And yet, necessary. That's how people grow and build resilience and learn to cultivate trust within themselves, is not being carried all the time.
Right. Well, and again, it goes back to where is it coming from?
Yep.
Like with the kids talking to their teacher, if it's coming from a place of love, whether it's love for themselves, love for what's right, love for whatever, then and it's coming out respectful, then that's fine. But if it's coming out with meanness or hatred or disrespect or anything like that, then that's not the place to be in. So it goes back to that and knowing the difference, which not everybody does. And that's something that I was talking about earlier today was, how many people know their values, and why is it important? Why is it important to know your values and your non-negotiables of what you're willing to either put out for others or take? Because you shouldn't be accommodating, and you shouldn't even be compromising your values, really. You need to be living in your values. And so you got to know what they are.
Yep.
You got to know what they are.
Yep.
So I'm sure we could continue, but we have to talk about I have a couple announcements if you don't mind. Number one, Gemma, the show today, actually at 12, I think she released it's a 2-part series. So it's I'm on today, and then Krista is going to be on the 6th. So it's a continuation of the story, one from my perspective, one from her perspective. So it's really cool. So we'll make sure we put the link out there. Next week, Carrie and I are hosting with Seth Butler, and he's going to be on with us, and we're really super excited about that. And what else? Is there any, what do you have going on? Any?
I'm just living my best life, people. So I don't know.
All right, all right. Well, I did announce that I am continuing my special for from March because it's my birthday. So I was like, I want to do that too. 90-minute sessions. You just have to book a call and you get your 90-minute session. And I don't want to hear anybody say, I felt bad. I didn't want to take a spot from somebody else. If you're thinking that, you need the call, and it is a coaching session, and I will coach you on whatever topic comes up for you. So that is the deal, and that link will be provided as well in the comments. Carrie, where can people find you?
CarrieLewis.coach across, I think, everything. Yeah. Or actually, I realized that YouTube is Carrie Lewis Coaching, but I mean, just click on my website and you're good. What about
Everything.
you, beautiful soul?
I am at mokshagrace.com, and you can find me all over social media under Moksha Grace as well. So, Carrie, thank you. This has been a lively conversation.
It has. I always
Wonderful.
enjoy them.
Yes, so much fun. And I'm actually gonna bail a little early because I gotta go meet my mom for my birthday lunch.
Love it.
All right.